What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Capitalized Podcast. I'm Chris Casella, and as always, this episode is brought to you by our private lending company, Sharper Capital Partners. If you want to learn more about how Sharper Capital can help you build your real estate investing business, you can check us out at sharpercapitalpartners.com. Today, I have with me Nate Squires. Nate is the co-owner of Squires Real Estate Group, LLC, which is a wholesaling and flipping company based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And the way that Nate and I actually got connected is a couple of our clients have bought deals from Nate in the past. He's a pretty well-known wholesaler here in Cincinnati and does a lot of business and treats people well. So Nate, really excited for this one. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I think the best way to start this one off is just by, why don't you kind of walk us through what your business looks like today? And then after that, we can take a step back and talk about how you got started in real estate to begin with.
Yeah. So I guess structure wise, I'm the owner. My brother is basically my partner, 50-50 partner now. I just brought him on this year. And then we have another employee, Connor. So, basically it's almost all wholesaling and flipping right now. We do take down, maybe a couple rentals or one a month. So, but yeah, how it's structured now, I run all the acquisitions and kind of sales process. My brother dispositions of properties, right? Helps us sell the wholesale deals. And then Connor kind of just, helps generate the leads, helps kind of funnel them to me. He'll go on appointments, as well. And, but yeah, that's how it's structured. Pretty much, I'd say 80% wholesale, we'll pick up a flip or a rental, once a month too, as well. So.
Okay. Gotcha. And I remember last time we were talking and in the intro here, you said that you have about 23 units right now. Is that right? 23 rental units?
Yeah, that's correct. So we got 23 rental units as well. Kind of let my brother handle that as well. Right. So I just kind of worry about acquiring them. He worries about property management, kind of the operations and stuff. But yeah, 23 units. And, right now we've got I think 6 active flips. And then we've got here like 9 active wholesales as well. So yeah.
Wow. And is that a pretty typical month for you, working through about 6 flips, 9 wholesales, or what do the numbers look like on a monthly basis for you, deal flow wise?
Yeah, deal flow wise, I'd say probably about 8 to 10 wholesales, or wholesale flips, right? And then a few JVs in there as well, which is kind of picked up, this year and late last year, right? Since we had a lot of deal flow. A lot of other wholesalers have reached out to us and said, "Hey, can you help me sell my deal?" I found a deal, so we'll get a couple of those as well each month. So.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I know that 2022 was the year that you went full time, and we'll kind of get into all that. But let's just take a step back here and let's talk about what's your background look like. How did you actually get started in real estate way back in the day, and what was that transition kind of like?
Yeah, so. I graduated from college 2016. Right, went straight into the corporate world. Did IT consulting. I was at the Big Four. If you're familiar with those companies, and some other consulting firms as well. But yeah, I was just picking up rentals on the side, kind of right, using that W-2 income. Got into buying just rental properties. So we're buying a couple a year. We got into a 4-unit. Got into a couple single families, right, and then. I think the decision, like probably 2020 or 2021, I was like, this, I'm never going to replace my income doing this, right? Or at least I'm not going to, make as much as I want to make, right? So I had to figure out like a way to do more active income, right? Instead of these rental properties, which are more like long-term investments that'll probably pay me, 15, 20 years down the road. Right. So I had a friend from college that was wholesaling in Tampa, Florida, and I saw him posting on Instagram his 15K checks, his 20K checks. Right. So obviously I had to reach out to him. I was like, dude, what the heck are you doing? Like, you aren't wholesaling, are you? That doesn't work. And he's like, yeah, I'm wholesaling. And I guess long story short, he told me he got a mentor. I don't know if you're familiar, but Wholesaling Inc. Brent Daniels runs it. So I got into his coaching program. So yeah, that's how I started in 2021, right? I bought his course, bought his coaching program. All right. So went from buying these rental properties kind of on the side to like, all right, I was wholesaling anytime, during my 9 to 5 job, right? Anytime I had free time, I was making cold calls myself, driving for dollars, um, right? Just generating leads. And my goal was like, all right, I'm going to do a few of these deals in 2021, and then hopefully I'll have enough money to finally quit my job in 2022. So we did. I only did 3 deals in 2021. It took me a while to get those deals, but you know, did 11,000, I think, in between 2 deals, and then closed out 2021 with like a 20K deal. And I was like, okay, I got 30,000 extra dollars in the bank account. Like, plus I saved up some money from work. So I was like, 2022, when my employer puts me on a project that I don't want to be on, I'm putting in the 2 weeks. So,
That's going to be the final straw.
yeah, that's the final straw. So, but yeah, I forget. I don't know what your question was, but I kind of just went on a rant there.
No, that's okay. I was asking about the background and kind of how you got started, what the transition looked like. So you definitely answered the question. So if we just kind of go back, because there's a lot of different pieces here that I'm curious about, and I'm sure that there's kind of more to all these as well. We're just kind of scratching the surface. But
Mhm.
like thinking about that first deal, what was it while you were working your corporate job that made you want to start investing in real estate and buying rentals?
Yeah, I think just working at the 9 to 5, like I just felt like I was going to be capped at some point, right? And I think I think my goal was, uh, I just didn't feel like I was like like I reaching my potential, I guess, at that 9 to 5 job. And I was like, I need to find something that's going to push me, right? Like, I just felt really bored at work, right? And just real estate has no cap, I feel like, right? So it's just as hard as you want to work, right? You can make as much money, as possible, right?
Yeah.
But I just felt like I didn't have that at the 9 to 5 job.
Okay. And so while you're working your 9 to 5, obviously it's easier to get financing, but there are some people here who are listening or some people in real estate whose whole strategy is they work with 9 to 5, but maybe they love their 9 to 5. And so they want to
Mhm.
build their rental portfolio on the side to supplement their income and,
Yep.
create passive income. So when you were working your 9 to 5 job, what kind of steps were you taking on the side to start looking for rentals? Were you working with wholesalers? Were you working with just agents trying to find turnkey properties and just getting renters in there? Or what was your strategy while you were working?
Yeah, I was working with agents. I actually never did a deal with an agent, which is it's crazy because I probably offered on 20 properties. And I think this is part of the reason I got into wholesaling. So the deals that we did find, they were all off market, right? And I didn't know about wholesalers. Like we're reaching out to them. It was literally like Craigslist. I think we found one. Our first 4 unit. We had uh, one of my partners had a family member that had a really distressed property, had like nine units that we ended up buying. All right, so they were just trying to offload that, so we bought that. And then what was the other one? Oh, just I mean, not door knocking, but talking to the neighbors. Right, we ended up buying one, across the street. So what's that? That was 15 units we picked up right there, and they were all off market. Right, so this things kind of clicked. Once I got learning about wholesaling and stuff, I was like, okay, all our deals have came, off market, right? So maybe I should just, you know, start marketing or doing this marketing, off market properties, right? If I want to get more rentals, like, and I can learn wholesale, right? So I
Right.
don't know, it just kind of clicked. I was like, all right, I can't do it the traditional way because the deals aren't good enough, right? So I need to find these off market properties.
Right. And yeah, I mean, you think about when you're buying, if it's 2021, you start buying rentals, or even if it was 2020, like the market at that time was insane. It's still kind of weird right now, but definitely back then it was super hot and it was really hard to find any deals that made sense. So I can
Yeah.
understand that. And your first one, so let's kind of dive into your first one. Your first one was a 4 unit. You found it, you said on Craigslist. So what did
Yep.
it look like? What was the process of like reaching out to that seller? What did the numbers look like? And how did you kind of tie this thing up?
Yeah, so it was for unit. I think he wanted like this is on campus, like Cincinnati's campus, in Clifton, so I guess right off campus. Um, but yeah, it was just an older gentleman. He was moving to Florida. He's like 75 years old. Right, he just didn't want this property anymore, and it had been sitting on Craigslist for a couple months and hadn't sold. Right, and then we just reached out to him. walked the property, and it was like, it wasn't in that bad of shape, right? For the 135,000 that he wanted. Right. And I mean, now it's probably worth like 350. I think we got it appraised for like 350 last year, but, yeah, I had a vacant unit, and the other units were, I mean, I think paying like 500 a unit, right? So it was $1,500. We still cash flowed, and we just bought the traditional finance, right? Since we all had our W-2s. But yeah, I can't say that we had a perfect analysis on this, right? And like, now I understand how to run my numbers, but like, we were just like, oh, this cash flows, right? It's on campus, so it can't be, or it's right off campus, so it can't be that bad. But yeah, we found it on Craigslist. We just used traditional financing, and didn't really negotiate with the guy. The guy was like, I'm moving to Florida. I just want to get rid of this thing.
Wow.
So we had it locked up a pretty good deal.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, like you were talking about, your first few deals were off market, so you're already getting that experience that's going to translate well to wholesaling, even just by getting started and kind of out of necessity, right? In order to
Yeah.
find a deal with numbers that worked, you had to go off market. So that makes a lot of sense. Have you guys renovated it at all, or have you guys just kind of held on to it? I mean, Cincinnati is a really hot school right now. I don't know if anybody who is out of Cincinnati fully understands. Like, it's growing really quickly. It's getting better year over year, even though they're adding more students. They're also increasing the quality of the education, and uh, and so a $500 a month for a room is actually, depending on where you're at on campus, is actually relatively cheap. So
Yeah, super cheap. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, sorry, I got lost there. But have you guys renovated at all?
Yeah, so this was back in 2018, right? So we renovated ourselves, right? So did kind of the investor special, like our own paint job, our own flooring, carpet. We did have a contractor that we also got on Craigslist, remodel the bathrooms. But yeah, we renovated it. They rent out for about $1,000 a unit now. Right. And actually last year, so 2021, we actually did like a full update, right? So, and then it priced for about 350. So we ended up pulling out all our money, but we didn't know what we were doing for the first 2 years, right? And we just renovated it, did kind of a half job on it, right? But now we got contractors in there, put like another 80 grand into it, refinanced it, pulled out our money. So now it's a great property for us. But
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's such a great point, just in terms of like getting started, not fully understanding exactly what you're doing. It's just like, how could you? I mean, I know obviously there's a route of like going with a mentor and everything, but really you're
Mhm.
still leveraging your mentor's skills. And so it's really cool to hear that you just kind of pulled the trigger and went for it and learned along the way. I mean, I'm sure that doing the work yourself wasn't ideal, but how much did you learn from that? Like, probably so much that you've brought forward and applied to other deals too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we just kind of jumped into it, right? And I would recommend going out and actually getting a mentor, right? For the first couple of years, we were just like, oh, this cash flows, right? And we're going to do the work ourselves, right? It's not going to cost us too much. Um, right. So that was kind of the first couple of years in real estate. And it's good. At least I dip my foot in, at least I have something to talk about, when I'm talking to other sellers. Like, yeah, I do own, I own 15 units, or like I own these properties. And when you go to meetups, you're somewhat credible because you do own real estate, even though in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm really not that experienced at it. And I don't think I was doing this the right way. But, now, that I've been in it for 5 years, now I feel like I, have a good understanding of, what the BRRRR strategy is, how to lock up deals correctly, how to use a contractor now. Right. So.
Right. Yeah, yeah, it all makes sense. So you got 15 units under your belt. You kind of realized the value of wholesaling. What were some of the next steps that you took? Did you start wholesaling after that, or did you continue building your portfolio?
Yeah, I think we bought one more 3 unit, kind of did the same thing, fixing it up myself. And then I think at that point, I'm just like, all right, realizing, how much work this is going to be to build a rental portfolio like this. Like, I need to go out, you know, I hire a mentor, right? And figure out a better way to do this. Right. So, all right. And then I'm realizing, like, okay, we're between 3 partners, making maybe $1,000 each, a cash flow a month. Like, we're never going to be able to make enough money to quit our jobs, right? Or like replace our income. So, yeah, I think at that point, I was like, all right, I need to find another way another way to do this. I saw my friend down in Tampa making a killing wholesaling, so I reached out to him, right? Got into that mentorship and just went all in, right? I was like, all right, I'm gonna like no vacations, right? No weekends. Like, I'm working my day job, and then I'm, wholesaling, during my day job when I have time off, and on my weekends, right? Right. And figuring out a way that, I got enough money in the bank account to where I can just do this full time.
So how did you go about, obviously you joined that mentorship and that's super valuable. And I'm sure, you could kind of expound on that, but how did you go about actually landing your first deal? Were you going back to Craigslist? Were you starting to implement systems? You said you were driving for dollars and cold calling, but how did you actually go about starting your wholesaling company?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, literally like, the mentorship and coaching program kind of lays it out, how to do it. Right. So it was all cold calling and driving for dollars is how I probably got my first 15 deals. Um, right. So, I mean, some of the systems we implemented, we got a dialer, right? I got, a driving for dollars app. So, pulled or did it. We drove through. I mean, I drove through multiple neighborhoods in Cincinnati, right? Penned all these properties on my app. Got all the phone numbers for these properties, and then just plugged it in the dialer. On my work breaks, I'd be, on the phone trying to lock up deals, right? And on the weekends, making calls in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to hear that because it's a similar story. My business partner Grant interviewed a guy named Josh Janis who's up in Columbus, and his story sounds pretty similar. He was driving for Uber Eats, and while he was driving around, he was basically driving for dollars and would,
yeah,
pin properties, give him a call, and just kind of started that way. So I think a lot of people kind of imagine it like you have to have like all these like fancy systems in place to start wholesaling or to get involved in real estate. Whereas
hmm
really, in the beginning, it is obviously the systems help, but to get off the ground, it's kind of just bootstrapping it and like making it work on a deal by deal basis is at least what it sounds like.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it was me just working. I mean, obviously when COVID happened, right, we were all working from home mostly, at least in my job. So, when I wasn't in meetings, I could be on the phone, right? And so I mean that's what I did, driving for dollars and just making cold calls.
Right. So once you got to the point where you closed on three wholesale deals, right? You started in 2021, you closed on three wholesale deals, and you said that it was just about $30,000 is what you saved up on top of stuff that you'd saved up from your job. So
Yeah.
once that time came to actually leave your job, did you find it difficult? Was it kind of scary, like leaving that kind of fixed income, sort of like every other week you're getting a paycheck and it's coming? Was it kind of scary to leave your job, or was it relatively easy?
A little bit, but I mean, at that point, like, I was like so confident that like if I, was doing this full time, right? I had already built up a little bit of a pipeline. I was like, okay, I think, a few of these I'll be able to lock up at some point, right? But I think just doing those three deals, was a huge confidence booster. Like, okay, if I'm going to do this full time, I think I can, you know, instead of doing, a deal every 2 months, I think I can do a deal or two, every month, right? And I was still grinding like that first month that I actually was at my job. Like I was still grinding, making these cold calls, like generating leads, building the pipeline, so that when that day came, I think it was January 31st, I quit. Right, like I had a ton of leads in the pipeline. I was like, something in here is going to close, right? So, and I had you know you know, probably 40,000 in the bank account, right? So I was like, okay, even if I go 2 or 3 months here, without closing a deal, right? I got a little bit of a cushion,
You'll
right?
survive. Yeah,
And
right,
I'll survive. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Or I'll end up on my parents' couch. I don't know.
Right. Right. So, one thing that I didn't ask before, but I'm curious about, when you were actually assigning your first contract, what
hmm
was what was it like? Were you kind of did you have any fear of like what might go wrong if the buyer backed out, or like how did you kind of overcome all of the challenges or fears associated with assigning your first deal?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I was the whole time I was under contract, I was just a nervous wreck. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I guess that first deal, the first wholesale deal, it was a cold call. I was driving for dollars, right? The seller got an agent involved, right? And said, talk to my agent. She's selling it. or she's going to sell it for me, but I want to sell it to you. So I was like, oh, great. And now an agent is involved, on the front end, right? Like she's going to find out I'm wholesaling this because I mean, most of the time I do act as the buyer, right? In the transaction, but I was just like, I think this is a deal. This has to be a deal. Like either way, like, I need to at least like try this out, right? Like this isn't the perfect situation or ideal situation, but none of them are, right? But I just locked it up for 120,000. Said I was paying cash, to the agent. And she didn't think anything of it, and I said, look, I need to. During my inspection period, I'm going to have a few contractors walk the property, and some investors walk the property. Right, so I had 4 or 5 guys walk the property with me, which I don't know, it was still awkward because I was like, she's not going to buy that. These are my contractors. I have like 5 people here. They don't really look like contractors walking the property. So yeah, the whole time just a nervous wreck, like walking the property with everybody, all the investors, like the actual buyers, right? And then that night I told everybody I need the offers in tonight, and I'll make a decision in the morning. The first couple offers came in under the 120, so I was like, oh god, this deal's gonna fall apart. I'm gonna lose my earnest money. But no, ended up getting an offer for 125 from a guy I do deals with today. The seller or the agent that was involved actually has sold a property for me that I flipped. So I don't know. The transaction ended up going great, but yeah, I guess to answer your question, yeah, there's so many parts in the deal where I thought like this isn't going to be a deal, or like I was just nervous the whole time, but it ended up going relatively smoothly.
Right. Have there been any deals since then that have not gone according to plan, in terms of a wholesale or signing a contract, or something has caused the deal to fall through?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like almost every deal, like something weird, comes up, right? With the seller, like, oh, I don't want to sell anymore, or like, I can't find a buyer, and like, at the last minute, someone comes in with an offer that actually works, right? That the first year of wholesaling, especially, right now, we don't run into, I feel like I've seen it all, right? Not everything, but most of the same issues come up, every single time, right? So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, every one of these deals, something different comes up, something you got to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of respect for you guys because I know it's not easy. I think one thing I probably should have asked in the beginning, but better late than never here. Can you kind of walk us through what the structure of wholesaling looks like? So from your end, kind of like
Mhm.
from beginning to end, getting a deal under contract to actually assigning it to a buyer, but also kind of explaining what that stuff means. Like what is all that goes into a successful wholesale transaction?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, like, so we'll generate the leads right through texting, cold calling, what we typically do. Then I'll go out. I really, you got to figure out, what the ARV is on this property, what the rehab cost is going to be, right? And I try to lock it up at 70% of ARV minus the repairs, and then I try to back out my wholesale fee, right? So, no, so I go over there with a number in mind, right? So let's just say, like, all right, max offer on this is 100K, right? So I go over there, meet the seller, basically offer him 100K, get him under contract. Then that's my purchase contract with the seller, right? And then then I have to assign that contract to an end buyer, right? So in my mind, I go over there like, okay, I can pay 100 for this, and then I can sell this for 120, right, to an end buyer, right? So I lock up the purchase contract for 100,000 between me and the seller, and then I market that to the end buyers, in Cincinnati, right? And then typically I'll have set up like a walkthrough with them, right, if they're interested in the property, right, and then they'll put in their offers, their cash offers, and then I'll do an assignment contract to that end buyer for, let's say, 120,000, right, and then basically I split the difference, so I make that 20K.
Okay, gotcha. And then with the title company, when you're working with the title company, how do you approach them and let them know what this deal looks like? I know that there are some title companies like Empora that are great with wholesalers, but not all title companies are created equal, and some of them
Yeah.
don't work as well. So how do you approach the title company with this structure and tell them and explain to them what's going on?
Yeah, so I would definitely find it like an investor friendly or wholesale friendly title company, because I ran into that. I ran into that with my first deal. Guess I should have brought that up. Um, but yeah, I would contact the title company and be like, are you familiar with assignments, double closings? Right? Do you do this? Or I would just reach out to somebody in town that's a wholesaler, right, and just ask, what title company should I work with that aren't going to give me an issue, right? But yeah, I mean, once you have a title company and have a relationship with them, it's super easy, right? Like, hey, I got another property under contract. I'm going to sign this. I don't have an end buyer yet, but I will have one here, later this week or next week. And yeah, I mean, it's been super easy with Import Title Company.
Okay. Yeah, and this might be getting a little bit into the weeds, but then on the settlement statement at closing, there's
Hmm.
basically a sales price, which is the price that you agree to with the seller. Then there's all the settlement fees, title fees, et cetera, in between, and then at the bottom there's an assignment fee, and that is the difference between the sales price that you agree to with the seller and
Hmm.
the price that you agree to with the end buyer. And that's basically anytime you see a wholesaler with a check, that's basically where that check is coming from, is that assignment fee down at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to kind of pick up on that when I was first getting started in real estate. So I just feel like it's worth kind of mentioning there. So
Hmm.
once you started getting involved in this full time, right? You left your job in January of 22. You started doing this full time. What changed besides the amount of time that you were able to devote to this? Did you start to implement some more systems? I know that you have a team member now, but what kind of changed? How did it kind of snowball after you left your job?
Yeah. So I mean, once I left my job, like, I had a full 40 hours to commit to this, right? So um, the me calling cold calling 1 hour a day turned to me cold calling 3 to 4 hours a day, right? um and then I have another guy drive for dollars. Like, I just hired him, right, to drive for dollars and text for me. Right, but I guess just the time that I had, to be able to spend in my business, right? I could, you know obviously generate more leads, start to build out a system, start to build a bigger buyers list, right? And it just kind of snowballed from there, right? Because I got more time to lock up more deals. I have more time to network and find more buyers, right? So my $5,000 assignment fee that I did on my first deal, now looking back at it, I probably could have signed that for 25,000. Right. And so it just kind of snowballs from there, right? Like, you get more experience, you lock up deals at a better discount, you get better at negotiating, you build a better buyers list. Uh, right. Just the more experience you get into it, right, and more time you can put into it, is just huge, right?
Right. And so you guys are texting, you guys are cold calling, you guys are driving for dollars. Do you guys do any direct mail? Do you guys have any other sources of leads besides, I'm sure, people kind of reaching out to you, like you said? You have other wholesalers calling you. I don't know if you ever have word of mouth with sellers who end up calling you just from like having sold other people's properties, or do you have any other leads coming in besides the texting, calling, and driving for dollars?
We did try some mailers. We did about $4,000 in mailers and didn't get a single deal. So cut that off. Right. I mean, I'm sure direct mail works. But no, texting, cold calling, drive for dollars has been, yeah, just our main source, and it works well for us. And I think we understand it pretty well now, and have some of that outsourced, obviously, to like the VAs and other companies. And then we're just the guys, locking up the deals, selling the deals, flipping the deals. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews from a lot of people, and we do some direct mail in our business, like actually the hard money side, like letting people who are doing significant volume in Cincinnati and the surrounding areas know that
Mhm.
we're hard money lenders based out of Cincinnati, and we've gotten a really good response rate. Now, obviously, it's a very different demographic that you're targeting. We're talking about like really kind of like high level skilled real estate investors versus maybe not so much that if you're looking to lock up a deal and to sign a contract. But I've heard mixed reviews on direct mail, so it's interesting to hear that. Um, Next piece, I know that and one thing you mentioned is you do a lot of flips too. And so, how did you go about doing your first flip? Was it something, I'm actually curious, like, did it come as a result of like a wholesale deal that didn't actually follow through, or how did you do your first flip and what did it look like?
Yeah. So it was another driving for dollars lead. So Connor found that one, and then it was a cold call. She owned two houses. One was a rental that was completely beat up and vacant. Then one was her personal house. But just the older lady that was moving to Columbus wanted to get rid of these two properties in Cincinnati. Um, but yeah, I knew I could wholesale them, but running the numbers, I was like, oh, this is going to be. I think I can make six figures on this, which I didn't. Um, I wouldn't say, but probably everybody's first flip goes bad, but yeah, I went into it thinking, okay, I'm gonna flip these because I think I can, I can make more than just wholesaling. Um, but yeah, same process. I guess generating a lead, and then I found a hard money lender. Just through honestly through doing the wholesale deals. Guys recommended hard money lenders, and I saw who the hard money lenders most guys use. So that's how I found a hard money lender. I had enough money in my bank account just from wholesaling that year to finally take down a couple flips. Um, but, but yeah, I guess anything else? What else was the question on the flip?
Yeah. So, and then I was just curious, kind of like as you're going through, one of the things that's unique in your position is that, this is your first like flip, it's your first deal, but you had such a good network from wholesaling before. But, how did you find the contractors? How did you manage them? And then how did this actually go? Like, how did your first flip actually go? You kind of alluded to it, maybe not going as well as you would have hoped. So, what
I
did it
didn't
look
make
like?
six figures. Yeah, so finding the contractors, I actually just made a post in like there's a Facebook group and for the contractors, just like there is for the real estate investors in Cincinnati, right? So just made a post like, hey, I'm doing two flips. I'm looking for a GC. So had a couple guys walk it. All right, and found a guy that I thought would be good to do the flip with. Right, I kind of made a scope of work from what I had in mind, and then he was able to piece it together as well for me. But yeah, I mean, I think I estimated like a 20K rehab on one and like a 45 on the other one, and it was about double that for the actual rehab budget. So, but yeah, I mean, just little things came up like all along the flip, right? And my scope of work that I put together wasn't very clear, right? I don't think it wasn't clear enough for the contractor. So, a lot of it was like, all right, Nate, you didn't ask for this, like now you're asking for that. Right. So that was additional money. Other things came up with the property along the way that we needed to repair. And then once you finally get to, list the property and send contracts, the buyers, they want to ask for, other repairs in the property that didn't get done, right? So it knocks off another 3 or 4 thousand in repairs, or who knows what. So yeah, that 100K turned into more like probably like a $35,000 profit between the two. So I probably would have made the same wholesale on it. So I think it was a good learning experience, but I think I've learned that I think I'm a better wholesaler than flipper.
Well, and I really do think that's so important. And this is something that I say a lot. It's like, in your first deal, whatever it is of your first, whether it's your first wholesale, your first flip, your first rehab, your first burr, basically, you're getting paid a lot more in experience probably than you are in the actual dollar figure of
Mm-hmm.
that deal, because you're bound to make a lot of mistakes. You're bound to, I mean, I talked to Tommy Har on Monday, and Tommy Har is very successful. Obviously, he crushes it up in Columbus. You and I were just at a meetup that he was hosting the other day,
Yeah.
and he said that he lost 100K on his first flip, and he kind of walked
Right.
us through those numbers. And I asked him after the meetup, I said, "How much do you think that 100K mistake is worth today?" And he's like, "Literally everything that I have right now, because it took that experience right there for me to learn and to understand, like, that's basically worst case scenario. The only place I can go from there is up." And it kind of gave him the courage to keep moving forward. So I like hearing those stories. And honestly, a 35K profit as opposed to a 100K profit or whatever it might be actually doesn't sound that bad in terms of like worst case scenario.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. So I can't really complain. At least I came out on top. But yeah, all
Yeah.
the all the hours that went into doing that flip when I probably could have wholesaled it
Yeah.
in a
Fair. There's
couple of
also
weeks.
opportunity
Right.
costs. Yeah. To be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree. Like learning experience. Like definitely. Can't complain. I made money. Right. And learned a lot. So
Right. So Obviously that kind of brings us to where you are today, right? 2022 was your first year doing it full time. You brought another member onto your team. You kind of implemented some systems. You guys are doing, you said about like close to 10 wholesale deals and or flips per month. So you got a lot of business going on. So where do you see yourselves going from here? Obviously, we're halfway through 2023 now, and business is picking up. So where do you kind of envision your business going from here, or what are some of the goals that you have moving forward?
Yeah, so we want to do like 2 million this year in like assignment fees and I guess flip income or flip net income. So yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate goal is to build this into like an 8-figure business and expand into a couple more markets, right? Because I don't think we can do that just in Cincinnati. We're gonna have to do 1 or 2 more markets. So, but I really want to build this into an actual wholesaling flipping business that I oversee. And I'm not the guy, in the day-to-day locking up deals. And then ultimately, start taking down like apartment buildings, bigger type deals, is the main goal. So, turn this into an 8-figure business and then, owning, thousands of units
Yeah,
is the goal.
awesome. I think it's insane just to think about doing $30,000 of wholesaling in 2021 to basically, targeting 2 million in 2023. It's really a pretty quick turnaround time. And it sounds like you guys have been scaling really, really quickly. And it's still only 3 people.
Yeah, and it's still only 3 people. Yeah, and I mean, at some point, like we're gonna have to hire, an acquisition guy, or later this year, or probably sometime next year. But yeah, our marketing budget's obviously a lot higher than it was in 2021. I was spending basically pennies compared to what we do now, right? And then just the knowledge that you gain, just by doing, you know, 10 to 20 deals, through those years, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
and it's just mind blowing. Like right after you've done, instead of doing the 5K wholesale, you do a few around 40 to 50,000, right? Like, your mind kind of just explodes, right? Like,
Yeah.
like there's a lot more possibility out there, right?
Yeah. I
Right.
don't want to
So I
overstep
would have
my,
never thought about this, but I would have never thought like, oh, I can, turn this into like a 10-figure business. But like, you listen to podcasts and listen to guys talk, like, they were, in my shoes, just a few years ago, and they run huge operations. So
right.
definitely possible.
Yeah, and I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but I've seen some assignment fees that are even bigger than the 40 or 50 too,
Oh yeah, yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot of money to be made. And the best part about it, to be totally honest with you, is that there's money to be made on both ends, even with those big assignment fees. Right. And one
hmm
thing I hear a lot with real estate investors is like you can't count the money in other people's pockets. And I think it's so true. Like if a wholesaler brings you a deal, it doesn't matter what their assignment fee looks like, because if you stand to make money on that deal, then it's a deal. And that's kind of where like the buck stops, right? You just got to stop right there. And that's the best piece, is like the win-win, even when there are some, you're making a good chunk of change on one deal.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I love about the main buyers and some of the guys that you funded deals for. Those guys are usually like, they congratulate me, on like a big wholesale fee, right? I think I've had one guy complain about, how much I was trying to make on a wholesale, and we've done 50 or 60 deals, right? They usually, you know, you know, every other deal, like they usually either congratulate you or they don't care, right? How much you're making, as long as they're making money, right? And I
Right.
hope that they make twice as much as I made, right? So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds like even some of the people that we funded deals for in the past kind of seen that assignment fee and want to get involved themselves too. They're like, oh, well, wholesaling looks like a good source of
Yeah.
revenue. So.
No, yeah, and I've had a couple of those as well. Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, before we kind of start to wrap things up, what does your marketing budget look like now on a monthly basis? You're doing, like we said, 10 deals a month, but what does
Mhm.
your marketing budget look like? And is that mostly spent on like skip tracing to find sellers' information, or where is that marketing budget being allocated to?
Yeah, so skip tracing, so data is pretty expensive. The texting, so we're sending out like 5,000, at least 5,000 texts a day. We have about 4 cold callers, right? So yeah, so we're looking somewhere around 15 to 20,000, right, in data, cold calling. texting,
Per
right,
month?
softwares, right? So, yeah, pretty good amount.
15 to 20, or did you say 10 to 15 or 15 to 20? Is that per month?
Oh yeah, yeah, per month. Yeah.
Okay, got you. And the VA, so the cold callers that you're talking about, those are VAs. So just to be clear, you guys have three people in person that are working on your business, but then you also have VAs who are cold calling.
Right. So we have, we hire like just a cold calling company, and they have the VAs, right? So we don't have to train them or anything. And then same with the texters, right? They're VAs texting for us, just sending the leads kind of up to us. Anybody that might be interested or something that might be considered a lead, right? We'll vet that, and then we'll call them up ourselves. So
Awesome. And are you willing to share the name of that cold calling company or the app that you use for driving for dollars, just to be a resource for some people?
yeah, so Call Geeks, the platform for the cold callers. Smarter Contact is our texting platform. There's also other ones out there like Batch Leads. Or actually, I don't know if Batch Leads still does texting, but it used to be one. Deal Machine is the Drive for Dollars app. So that's going to be your best Drive for Dollars app to pull a list that way. And then Batch is where we get most of our data.
Okay. Batch Leads is where you get most of your data, but then you use other platforms for the texting and cold calling. Okay.
Yeah. So Batch is all the data, skip tracing to pull the list, and then Deal Machine is basically also the data, right? That's your Drive for Dollars houses. You pull that list, put that through Batch, and get their phone numbers.
Right. And when you're pulling information from Batch Leads, what are some of the things, just high level, because I know that there's a lot that you could get into, but high level, what are some of the things that you're looking for in the lists that you pull for sellers that you think might qualify?
Yeah. So you're saying the type of properties and type of owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So typically, like you're just your absentee owner. All right. So like you're basically tired landlord, like a landlord, or it's a vacant property. So absentee is typically what you're going to want to go after, right? So that you're not trying to wholesale someone's house. They're already living there. What else do we do? Like tax lien lists, so tax delinquent lists, pre foreclosures. Still I've done a couple pre foreclosures, but never done a deal specifically from a pre foreclosure list. But a couple of ones we came across are in pre foreclosure. Those are the main ones: absentee owners. What they say? Tax liens, vacants. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I don't want to keep you here too long. I know we're kind of nearing the end of this conversation and the time that we have scheduled, but what would you say is something that, one of the biggest lessons or, biggest lessons that you've learned as you've gotten involved in real estate that you think other people should know if they're looking to get started?
Oh man, if I could go back, I'd just say hire a mentor. Like, don't be cheap. Like, work extra time at your job or whatever you got to do to make enough money to hire somebody that can just kind of lay out, how you should go about the process. Like, I just wasted so much time, in my early 20s when I could have just paid somebody, right, to kind of give me the step-by-step process on, wholesaling or flipping or, burning properties, right?
Yeah.
I would just say find a mentor, pay them if you have to, right? It's just going to speed up the process for you, like 10x it, right? So, I mean, I will always from now on, pay somebody at the level above me, right? To get to that level, right? I'm not going to I don't want to figure all this out on my own, right? There's people way smarter than me with way more experience. So hire a mentor.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Awesome. And then how can people add value to you today? Anybody who's listening?
I mean, if you got deals in Cincinnati, happy to look at them and happy to, help you sell those. So yeah, or just follow me on Instagram. Also lenders, like if any private money lenders, always looking for money. But feel free to email me, just realestatenate513@gmail.com. Or follow me on Instagram. Same thing, realestatenate513. But if you got deals or have money, feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Awesome. I'll leave all that that contact info down below so that whoever's listening or watching this on YouTube, you guys can have easy access to Nate's contact info and get in touch with him. Nate, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time to do this. It's been good getting to know you and doing some business with you. And appreciate all the insight that you shared on this podcast. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, of course. That's all we got for you today, everyone. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and check us out at sharpercapitalpartners.com. And of course, get in touch with Nate if you have any deals in Cincinnati or any private lenders out there looking to place their capital. Definitely get in touch with Nate. Like I said, I'll leave that contact info below. Appreciate you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.